Hey guys, what's going on? So we are currently midweek and looking at the DXY. It's shaping up to look really good. It looks like we are getting some progression to the upside. We can see that we have these tight equal sort of candles and it is just moving up. This is quite common with the DXY as well. Understand that, from time to time, even though we get these like massive pullbacks, we do eventually then start to rebuild, and then we build up quite slowly, get these decent entries and so forth. So I wouldn't really be worried about missing any sort of entry and maybe even FOMOing for a buy if there was one right now, because there isn't any structure to really support us on the daily as well. Usually if we see something, we might see a flag like this, and then you might be like, okay, cool, could I entertain that? And then you can get into that position there and then take the next sort of entry over here, where you might get an expanding and so forth. So there'll be a lot of opportunity in this alone if we do start running into this bull run. Even if it did move up, it's even better. If we did get a strong impulse, and yeah, you weren't involved in it, but then this gives you a little bit more confirmation in the market that we could be doing this. Obviously, we have to understand one thing. This can become something a little bit deeper, where if it does drop off and then it's really making its way to this low, we might get it descending into this low and then come back up for the high. Understand that those are some possibilities and variations, things that you should also be thinking about, variations. But more than likely, it seems like we are making that sort of move to the upside at this point. And right now there isn't no clear entry, especially on the lower time frames. I wouldn't just be jumping into anything, because this is just very corrective price action at the moment. It's not really typical price actions you can capitalize on. So yeah, that's basically it for the DXY. JP225, it was looking pretty good. It was corrective though, no surprise that we did get this pull up. I was able to capitalize 6% position on New Zealand yen, which I'll go to in a second. But yeah, so overall we can see here that we came into this low, we didn't get any commitment, and we just pulled back. It is what it is. At this point here, the structure is becoming more and more clear, that we're looking at something more so like this, and I'm now interested to see how this plays. I'm not really bothered about how the bottom line is, if it's here, if it's there, whatever. More so it's probably around about here, but this is the expanding I'm looking at, and this hopefully will work as a reversal to the downside. However, with these expandings, we very much know that they can work as continuation to the upside. So don't get too stuck into it, but I am seeing that there's a possibility for these head and shoulders across the boards as well. So this can form into that as well. Just remove this and all of that, and we can just look at it for this. And if it does come up here and then starts to come down, we can still get something like that. These are some possibilities as well. You have to look at the variations and really sit there and think about what could be happening. Or the real question is this just an extension that we're just squeezing? And we've been saying this for weeks, this is some dangerous price action to just be sitting in, but this is just the squeeze that we're sitting in. So until that squeeze is really broken, we just don't know what's going to happen. So if we did get something like that, which would be clear on the daily for sure, it's a no-brainer. That is absolutely a no-brainer what you want to do. But at the moment, we're looking at that squeeze and we're just waiting in anticipation to see what happens. Obviously, we just mark on the high and the low and essentially just look at it as one range. I'm just going to quickly pull up on the 4 and turn that into a line. Yeah, so I'm just looking at it as a range, and then whatever happens, guys. We just have to take a message from the market, but understand this is just still squeezing. New Zealand yen, guys, so this is the position that I was able to take. Currently you can see that on New Zealand yen I'm waiting for a correction to basically work as continuation. It didn't really move in the best sort of price nature. It did it did move very, very well, but it moved so aggressive that this pullback is kind of expected sometimes. We have to be aware that sometimes when we get these very aggressive pushes, we do get some sort of pullbacks on them, and sometimes they can be deeper than most. So where did I take my entry? Well, there was 2 phenomenal entries here. There was one up here, which I'll zoom into the 1 hour and you can see it better. Had this one over here for this section, and you would have been able to capitalize in there on the 15-minute refinement, and you would have been more so just positioning yourself there. I wasn't in favor for that position at all personally. I know some people took it, and that would have resulted in quite a decent position, to be honest. Where you would have taken it, maybe more so around about here, and maybe you would have given yourself a little bit more room to breathe, call it about 15. And then, yeah, you would have run roughly around about an 8% position there. But personally, that wasn't the trade for me. I just wanted to see it break this. As soon as I saw that impulsive break, I was waiting for a continuation. Walking you through it right now, it's more so like this. We pushed through and we started to correct. So the first thing I had was, okay, is this going to be the top? Is this going to be the bottom? But we have to wait, right? So as I'm waiting, I'm seeing these candles play through candle by candle. And then I'm thinking, okay, cool. Adjust my angle a little bit, see how this looks. And then we pushed up and then we aggressively pushed down. At that point there, I wasn't concerned about missing a trade because I was like, well, I still don't have enough in structure for me to take this. And if it does sell off, I'll wait for the next one. And then we had two bottoms. So I was like, okay, this is clear. And then we've got this sort of section here and this little bit of override. There's nothing really above it that was really jumping out to me to say that, okay, we could sell off. But if we did start correcting and then slowly got here, maybe I might understand that we could retest this trend line, this sort of level here, but it wasn't something I was interested in. And then as we had this over here, this is where it got interesting for me. Zoomed in and said, okay, look at it on the 5. We're over here, wait for the next candle. And then we had indecision in this area, which was interesting. Said, okay, now the 15-minute is about to close. Let's have a little look. And then boom, we saw this. This is exactly where I wanted to enter. And then as soon as I opened the entry, it was a little bit above, to be fair. And it was over here. Now, I personally wanted to take a 1% position, but I actually took 0.5% position. It was just personal preference, you know, everybody's different. Sometimes you want to take less, sometimes you want to take more. And then fortunately it just kind of pushed through, was quite lenient on my management till we broke through this, and then we kind of moved to progression. At this point here, I was still holding just to break even. And then when it started running like quite aggressively, I was like, okay, I'm going to wait till we get to 3%, which for me, because I was holding 0.5%, everything is halved. So this was 1.5% for me, and then this would be 6% on the account portfolio. So we're currently running around about 6% here. But I said to my friend yesterday, the day before yesterday, that every time I run to 4%, I'm going to try to do something and lock in 3 and just see how that goes for myself. Because going back through my trades and just watching them, I then saw that a lot of my trades, so it was at this point here where I decided to lock in the 3% over here. And I said to myself, I'll lock in 3% every time I run 4, because the majority of my trades that I took break-evens on, they would usually run around about 5% before they pull back. And we looked, and it was a little bit crazy that I would sit there and actually see my trades come to 5% and then pull all the way back to break-even. And even sometimes a small loss because of slippage. And yeah, it was a bit silly. So when we kind of broke it down and said, okay, what if I closed them at 3%? Did I have the opportunity? Yes. And then I looked at it statistically, and I would have been up quite a significantly large percentage. So I thought, you know what, rather than go, because I was testing out the fact of just holding the trade at break even, see how far it goes, didn't really work out in my favor at all. Maybe it was a sequence, probabilities, possibilities, just didn't really work out in my favor. The losing streak, the break even streak was just too great for the loss of the gain. So now I've decided to go down this method. Let's see how that goes for myself. And then we just saw, this is now we're getting into like later evening, I believe. I'll go London time, yep. And we can see that as it was coming up into here, around about here is where I got taken out. And I was happy with that, to be honest. I was more than happy with this position to be taken out. And then like obviously if it did come back down, it is what it is. And then we just came and corrected and started making our way all the way back up now. So overall, that was a pretty good position. That was a 6% position there. I was quite happy with that. Management would probably manage it the same. Obviously over here, got to be a little bit more careful as well, understanding that, you know, the risk that came with this. Obviously it can just come up, tap that 1, 2, 3 and then go. But I was quite happy with the quality of that. There was definitely a position in there. I think that comes with a little bit more experience, maybe than what I'm lacking at the moment. But overall, was able to capitalize. So this week I am currently up around about 9% roughly. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. EJ, Didn't take any trades on EJ, but we can actually see with EJ that we are still continuing to the upside. So we broke through this quite aggressively, and now we're still in a momentum to the upsides. Looking at how the daily and the 4-hour more clearly, it looks like we just created some more of a continuation here, where now we're just going to see this potentially go. Does this become more of an expanding? Who knows? I think this is just continuation to the upside at this point, and we're going to see EJ just fly. Positioning ourselves on this would have been strategic, but not the best, because at that point in time we saw with the JP225 we were somewhere down about here. We cleared this low, we were over here, it could have just dropped off, and then everything would have changed, and we would have been seeing a lot of potential movement in the market for these yen pairs. But we didn't get it. We're coming up to the upside. It is what it is, and I think now it just comes with a bit more patience. So in terms of entry point sort of area, I was looking at the long, it was part of the forecast, just unfortunate to get it. Who knows, if we do come back down and we come back down here, possibly this is a good area to entertain long. We'll have to wait and see, but that's basically the only sort of long position I would take, and I'll wait and see if we do come here. More than likely we're probably just going to move to the upside, but I would look at it more so like this now. See this as 1, 2, and then potentially we come in for a 3. We've got a nice clear larger flag above this high after the impulse accumulated price, and we push for the upside. This can easily turn into something else, but for now we just have to evaluate. If we do sort of reject in this zone here and we do come back down here, we can see if we get a buy position. USD yen. So USD yen is also one of great interest. Now yesterday we sort of sell off ever so much. We tapped into the high, but we just sold off, and I just wasn't very convinced on it. I didn't want to take an entry on it, especially with all of this impulsive movement. USD yen definitely looks like one that has potential, because there's so much that lines up right now as well in this zone alone. It's just, I don't want to be jumping in this position straight away. I want to wait for a little bit more. I think structurally it's not yet fully made. I'm looking for it to, whatever it has to do, but perhaps we're going to see something like this, where we do get a middle section and we come back up one more before we sell. There's a few variations, or we push up, push back down, create head and shoulders over here, and we sell off, but I wouldn't be too convinced with that so far. I'm just looking for an insurance entry at this point, maybe a push up and a solid push back down, a flag, and we go. If we get the flag up here, cool. If it's further down, it is what it is. We just take a message from the market, and yeah, that's it. So first flag sort of territory I'm looking for, one that requires a bit more patience as well at this point, I believe. Obviously this spike up can be a lot more greater than we expect, so I'm going to wait patiently. But I think looking at how the DXY is moving quite aggressive, I wouldn't be surprised if we start moving up, continuing, and then we start moving with aggression. So bear that in mind. But yeah, we could possibly be coming back up to these highs. Not something that I'm very favorable for, but understanding that it's a possibility, and then maybe we might come in structurally, and while the DXY stalls, and then we all sell off together. We'll have to wait and see though. So there's a few possibilities on the line for USD pairs, but it's not looking too good. Even though it's in the value area, it's just not the approach that I'm looking for, so I will wait for that insurance entry. GBP yen as well, like I said with the USD pairs, yen pairs, they are looking like we are getting this bullish momentum. So same sort of situation as we saw on EJ. I am looking for that larger sort of flag territory. The only thing about this one is we didn't kind of create anything just yet, so I have to go off sort of reference points that I can see. I'm looking for a 1, 2, 3. Do we come into here, maybe come up one more time, create this sort of middle section, get into there, and then we go long. Maybe easier to see inverted, but you can see it like that. And yeah, that's essentially what I'll be looking for in terms of GJ. But the best one I'm actually seeing right now is Aussie yen. But now that you see the rest of them, you think, even if a flag formed here, would it be the one, right? The negative confluences that I can see straight away is, okay, maybe we were rejecting from here, but we haven't tapped into that and we're so close. It's very possible that we still have that move to go up. We are seeing across the board with a lot of these yen pairs that we are seeing some bull momentum coming. It would be very interesting to see some sort of accumulation of value over here, push back up, come back in, and then do something. So I wouldn't want to get caught in on a sell right now. I just don't think it's of interest, especially with just that. I think that's easily going to trap people out and make them believe something that's not happening. However, the interesting thing about this, very much so, is we kind of broke below that low, but we pulled back. But if we do something like this and we create something structurally, we could potentially come back into this slow retest. So there could be enough room to manage it, and then we can actually see if this starts developing into whatever it needs to develop into. But more so, if we do get something like this, it's a no-brainer. You know, we could look for the long position as well with the other yen pairs. So a little bit tricky to take advantage of as well, because that we haven't really got that top. But like I said, if we do get something like that, you might be able to take this position over here. Comes with a bit of risk though, into that low, where there could be a 3-to-1. Even if you get that a bit tighter, I wouldn't really recommend it, because you do have a small inflection point up there. But like I said, you could probably squeeze it in there. Yeah, it just comes with a bit more risk, and I think if you're not up on your account, it's not worth it. I wouldn't really want to waste my time entertaining it. I'll wait for these larger structures to form. This could just get very sort of corrective, let it do its thing, comes up, taps into this area, comes back down, and then we push. And then we're not surprised that we saw something like that. And then if we get the push down and a flag from that territory, that's what we could be looking to entertain. So we look for that solid push up, push back down, and then this becomes the head, the left shoulder, and then potentially the right. CAD yen. So CAD yen was looking good as well. I was quite excited when we started coming back down to this area. We seemed to just tapped into it, but we didn't do anything. We didn't commit anywhere below. Just a good solid sign that, well, not a good, but a solid sign that price is just not ready yet. Looking at it on the hourly, I'm still waiting for second bottom or something to just, I mean, we have 2 bottoms, 2 tops here, right? So we can kind of see it's giving us that vibe of, we have push up, push back down, push back up. Do we come back down into here to go back up? I don't think so. I think because of this angle as well, we're probably going to see this probably go, create something, stall, and then go. We'll have to wait and see, but CAD yen isn't the most favorable one out of all of the pairs at the moment, because we haven't got a solid push away from the break of this. Even though we are coming from a bit of a corrective impulse, it's not the sort of price action I'm looking for. And then this is looking interesting, because it does look like it has this ascending feel to it as well, where this is something more that I would wait for. And I think Swiss yen could probably maybe be the black sheep of the pair. I was hoping New Zealand yen was, but not quite. So if I go to the weekly quickly, we can see that we've actually met the very, very high value point. We're actually creating brand new highs, and we're in a very, very interesting area. So structurally, not the best at the moment. There could be so many variations of what can happen. We could do something like this, where it comes up and then we start correctively pushing back down, and then we come back up and then we sell, and the next thing you know, we're towards the end of the year. That's the weekly, obviously. The daily, we could probably see it over here as well, where there's a few variations of what we might be able to take out of this, where this becomes the left shoulder, this becomes the head, we get another, and then we off, and then that's the sort of head and shoulders we're looking for. Or we haven't really seen what it could really be yet, and we get some sort of expanding, who knows. There's, like I said, right now it's not clear, there's not enough structure in there. The only thing we can really make out, and we don't really have this confirmed, is is this the sort of angle we're looking at? where we're seeing something like this and then we turn around? If so, that's going to be quite interesting, but we have to understand as well, this can still start creating new highs, push up, create another flag here, and then when all the other yen pairs are ready, we start to see a decline in price, and then the run really starts. So patience is the most key one. Preserve your capital for these good trades. Don't jump into some crappy trades because you can, simply because what's going to happen is when you can't, it's also when it's really going to bother you. So also, there's so many different ways of drawing these trend lines, so I wouldn't really waste my time with it, because you're always just going to be sort of setting your expectations on the market. We can't really tell what the main point is there. There's nothing that really speaks out to me, but if I could pattern separate it, I would more so use this one and say that, okay, we've come to the value point with some sort of equal spacing nature. However, now we're at this point we need to evolve, because I don't think price is fully developed, and we're going to wait, and then maybe we might come down, create something else, and then this becomes its own structure. Who knows? At the moment, there's so much happening in the news, as I mentioned before, like across the world, that it would not be a surprise if we did see a major sell-off at some point and we see this crazy aggression. Even something like this coming in the market across the board, and we get something like we had with COVID, because everyone is just talking about it, right? And then there's a lot of fear in the market, inflation, and so many people don't want to spend their money, they don't want to do this and that, and then what happens is we might get something like that. And then when you see something like that, would you really be surprised? Would you really be surprised? And there could be a lot of entry in there. Most likely, a lot of these times are so volatile there isn't, but we'll have to wait and see. So be sharp, because the housing market is looking terrible across the world. Every single place across the world is looking horrible for housing markets right now. You can buy a house, but with a crazy interest rate, electricity bills, gas bills, everything is through the roof. Oil prices. Right now, it's just a very expensive time to be alive, and people can't afford it. So, right now it's difficult for everyone. But after these financial crises, a lot of stuff will change. They're calling it the Great Reset. Obviously, we don't know when stuff like that is really going to happen, but we'll see. So, Aussie US dollar. Obviously, we are moving in this very corrective price action. Straight away, when you look at something like this, it doesn't look nice at all on the weekly. You look at it and you're like, oh gosh, what the hell? And then if we just break it down and only look at what is relevant, we can see that, okay, we have this bit of price here, and if we look at it like that, not so much, so we would actually eat inside it. And I would more so be looking at it like this, which to some people would not really make sense, right? And we'd be evolving. So we take this, we'd move it over here. I think this comes with a little bit more experience personally, because not everyone will be able to read between the lines. But then this becomes its own internal structure within this. And then when you look at that, it's not a surprise that it's selling off. So then we go to here and we can see that we are creating continuation to the downside. The only thing about this is it's not easy to take advantage of that. We had this trade over here, but the only negative for me was it was a part of this sort of bit of price. As soon as we had this push away, this is when it became a little bit more interesting. So we had this strong push down, and then we came into this area where it was kind of creating some sort of structure. And then we had this little internal part meeting into it, which I really liked, but we didn't quite come up to this point. But we had the double tweezer top, which I think I should have taken a message from the market and taken advantage of that. Most probably I would have been out of the market for 4%, maybe, yeah, probably around about 4-ish% I would have been out of the market for sure. And then now I would just be waiting in anticipation for the next entry. I think personally I'll be looking at something like this. So if I take this bit of price, put it there, this bit of price over here, and I will wait to see if we get something like that. and then maybe over here we get a push up, push back down, and then we're in a flag for the sell. And I think that's more so interesting play for Aussie US dollar, just because of where we are structurally. It would make sense to take people out like that. This could be left shoulder, right shoulder territory. So if we do get that push up and it starts moving or progressing, comes up here, retest this sort of area, and sellers understand that it could be a part of this bigger structure of left shoulder, head, right shoulder. But this more so has more than enough to go from here. It doesn't need to come all the way up here. It's just there's a bit of price there that could lead to that. So understand the risks that come with it. Euro GBP. Well, Euro GBP is interesting, right? So we in that value area, we started turning around, but it's just in this very corrective squeeze right now, still in this squeeze. Now we do have that sort of 1, 2, 3 nature coming into this, but I'm not so convinced at this point that this choppy movement is for me. I will wait till we clear this, maybe we start creating something and go. That's something I'm more interested in to see than just getting into a trade there. But this could be shaping up very, very soon. Be sharp with it. We have GBP CAD as well, same situation. We could be retracing in this area here. We're creating this sort of flat line, but we didn't create any tops here. But we did come in very correctively into this. So I'm interested to see that because of that corrective price action, can we strategically place ourselves in potentially a push and a flag situation, something like that, with a little bit of an entry. If we get something like that, we could be good to go. So I will be marking that on for one to be watching today. I think that's about it really. Euro USD. So yeah, I think just like the Dixie, just waiting on this one. It seems like there's more than enough. We have a push up, we have a flag, and now we could just be pushing through. I think that's enough momentum now for it to really just start its bull run. So I would be looking at more so like this is just the entry, push up, flag, push up. But we can evolve, we can come down again. There's so many variations. Not my typical sort of trader here, to be honest with you. I'd look for more, but I think understanding the news, understanding that, you can see why this would move up, and you wouldn't be surprised. But personally, I'm not gonna get caught up in this just yet. GA. So GA is looking interesting. There was a potential little entry here on a hook point, which was just there. And personally, I would have never taken this. I just don't think it was worth the risk. Looking at it here, we have, okay, so we just zoom out to the daily. We have a near miss to this area. We had a massive impulsive move, but we retraced about 50% of this, right? We literally pulled back. Let's just have a little look. Yeah, roughly around about 50%. If I look at it, I don't even have 50% on it. So if I just pull it in from here to here, we look at it, yeah. So it's pulled back more than 50%, probably around about, yeah, more than that. So yeah, just easily, it's just one of those ones where I think if it does start to sell off, then we'll take a message from the market. But look at the price action, impulse, massive correction, very corrective little squeeze up. Then we had a push up, then we had this sort of corrective price, and then we came up here. Would you really want to sell that just because of that small little price there? When you look at the higher time structure, we have a one equal spacing. You know, we came down here, we started moving, we didn't quite get any commitment, kept pushing up. I wouldn't be surprised if this just kind of traps people out now, makes them think that the market's really selling off and we don't go. But seeing something like that, where price just came up, pushed down very aggressively, and now we're just kind of moving with more aggression. Oh, it's interesting. It's interesting to see, but still, it's not yet. If we clear this price here, if this price all gets cleared, and next thing we know, price is down here and creates a flag, then we can take a message from the market, and I think that reduces a lot of the risk. But then you look at that massive move lower, would that really be enough to just kind of play with this? Honestly, it's one that I just wouldn't really want to touch at all right now. I was looking at GA was looking nice when it had the structured approach on the table. We had something like this leading into this area, and then if that retrace there played, it would make sense. But then we just continued sort of correcting, and then we made this sort of 1, 2, 3 here, which then I understand, you know, there was this sort of, okay, extension into that, makes sense. But then at that point, yeah, sorry about that, the video cut off. At that point, we can see that, you know, we basically started correcting back down, and then this became something larger, and then because of that, we then saw the bias for price pushing up. We did push up into this area, which makes sense, and now we're pushing back down. Now this is the area where I think, because prices now actually started coming back down, you can potentially look for short positions, but it's only because we're now seeing that coming back into this area. And I think for that, what is this log button over here? Interesting. Yeah, so because of that, I think that's one of the reasons why I think if you are going to be looking for a short position, it's because you have all those confluences stacked, and it makes sense that, you know, this price is all being cleared, and then once we've broken below this and we're then creating some sort of continuation to the downside, we can then look at something to the downside. But that's taking a message to the market when it's applicable. I think prior to that, it's just a bit of FOMO. It's easy to just jump in a trade because we're seeing some big red candles. At the moment, we're seeing some good movement to the downside, so it is looking like it's playing out pretty well at the moment. But I wouldn't be surprised if we did see, you know, this pullback. So I would be careful with that and understand that it's impossible and probable. But there could be a flag over here. Like I said, it really comes down to personal preference. I mean, understand the risks that come with it. If you're way up on your account, you can take something like that. But if you're not up on your account and you're trying to get consistency, or you're doing a funding challenge or something, you want to ideally wait for that push down and something a little bit more secure, because you're getting a bit more confirmation in that sense. Otherwise, you could get taken that trade there and it moves up, and then you're taking a loss, and then it looks like it's coming back down again, take another loss. Here, this is where it's looking a little bit better in that site, so I would more so be safe and take my trades more in a safer way. But understand, like, this could be your left shoulder, head, right shoulder now. So don't just jump into a trade here and then wonder why price came up and then sold off. Understand that there could be something being told in this message here, that we actually created a head and shoulders before we sold off. So that's also something that I want you to be aware of, that if we do start selling off down here and then we started correcting and then we created something, it came back into, maybe not like that, maybe if we came in like this and created a 1 2 3 and then into this area, which kind of lined up with that, pushed above, came back down, then we could understand that and see, okay. But honestly, like, I think I would really consider waiting for a push down and a flag on this. I think the reason being is, if you look at it on the high time frame, there is this as a possibility. Look at how we've aggressively started moving up. Okay, maybe we aggressively moved into this point. Okay, that's a possibility, but we moved more than 50% of the move, and we're all the way up here now. So I don't think one candle is really going to dictate everything. I think this was an in and out trade, and it always has been. And the trade would have been taken quite aggressively. I think you would take that trade. If you did take it, you know, you're quite lucky, because there isn't really much to it. I don't think it's easy to read between the lines of this as well. Yeah, just it's not one that I think is actually even, yeah. There's a lot to it, but we'll have to wait and see now. There's that possibility as well, so I would stay sharp. And then if we do come into this and then come back down, and then we come into it one more time and then sell off, that makes sense. But where are you in structure as well? So a few variations of things. GA could be interesting, but like I said, it's not really one that I'm very, very much interested in, just because personally, if we were to get there, I would have liked to see something like this, and then we came up, and then we came in, and then we arrived with some sort of structure, and then maybe at the end over here internally within that circle we saw something like so. And then if we had that internal structure there, that would have been interesting, right? because then we could have looked at it and been like, okay, fine, we had a big structure over here leading into this area, then in that area over here we had another internal structure. Perhaps maybe you could say that this is your internal structure, but then at that point there it's like, it just looks like more continuation to the upside. Looking at it on the 4 hour, it's just one big corrective price. That wick is probably going to get filled at some point if it closes like this as well. It's very unlikely that I'm going to see price just pull all the way back down here and then that just becomes one big sell candle. That will just be very unusual as well, but like I said, let's wait and see how that develops. But I think that more than likely this is probably going to correct to make its way all the way back up here and then probably just continue. So I wouldn't touch that, man. Even if there was a couple percent in there, it comes with a lot of risk. And then USD CAD, you know, the possibility for some sort of flag to potentially move to the downside, but then also you have the risk of being at that low. So then you have to ask yourself, we did come down quite correctively, we're trading at this low. Is it something that I really want to be taking a short on? Because this does look like it could be a push up, hasn't completed a 1, 2, 3 expanding into this high yet. Could we be the beginning of a new move? So if that is a beginning of a new move, simply you just want to wait for a strong push out, a flag continuation, and then take it for the long. And that's essentially keeping it simple. New Zealand Swiss, it's not looking too good, to be honest. I was looking for some sort of larger continuation. I think now it's just become even larger than I wanted. I don't know, maybe that there is a trade in there somewhere, but I think this is just so corrective and big right now. I don't know, it's just not my type of trade at all, so I'd leave that clear. GU is, it's got potential, but I think with a lot of the GBP pairs we're seeing at the moment, there's some bull momentum in there. If we do make a clear push back down into here, it would make sense, because we do have this, you know, not the best, but interesting, right? If we do start coming back into that area there, where I'll just take this override and put it here, I'll be interested to see something like that. And then if we do come back into here and then create something, come down here, create something else, there could be some couple entries in there, and then we'll take it to the 90 rule and see how that goes. So more so, I'll be looking for something in that light, and we'll see how that plays. I think GBP New Zealand, likewise, it's looking good for the sell. All of a sudden, we're getting a turnaround on these GBP pairs actually. So coincidentally, we could see some good entry. We haven't completed this just yet, but we do have a mini double top just below it. We have a structured approach, internal, expanding in here, 1, 2, 3, and then we have an extension, 1, 2, 3, and then we have a retest. No surprise that we're potentially seeing that sell off. I would say that that is a mistrade for me actually. Now that I look at it, the GBP Aussie one, okay, fine, let that go. But that is a solid mistrade for me. Oh my god, I need to analyze this and get involved, because this is looking very nice. Damn, that's a mistrade. Euro New Zealand looks like it could potentially be going long. Obviously we have this low section, we have this corrective move into it, and then we pushed up aggressively. It could come back down again one more time, who knows, give it some time, but it's not one that I'm going to really be entertaining. Euro CAD's going, I don't know, not really my type of price action at this point. Could be a larger correction forming before we get there. And then we have CAD Swiss. CAD Swiss is just doing its thing, honestly. I would leave that alone. Yeah, that's not even reached this value area yet. It's in this expanding area, but it's just very sort of corrective, doing its own thing. And then you have Aussie CAD. Aussie CAD, I was waiting for a bit more. Maybe this is going to turn into an expanding, who knows. I'll wait for this to see if it does come back up to here. But I've said this a few times with these Aussie pairs, it could be very, very likely that we don't, and we start creating something in here, and then we just do this. And then next thing you know, there was a flag in here, and we didn't take advantage of that. And that was the entry that we should have been focusing on over here. So keep an eye on these pairs, because I think they could shape up and they could be nice. But I think big one is GBP New Zealand for sure. So all right guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.